I woke up last night, this morning, feeling all sad, depressed. What is so typical about life? When I learn a foreign language, I often fear making mistakes because if I don't, then I won't know how to learn from them or how to speak properly a foreign language. I mostly learned by making mistakes and mispronounce things and stumbled around in Russian for a while. Penny says don't make mistakes. Oh my god, when I knew Daria Larson, not Daria Tatchenko Larson, Daria Larson, who is from Ireland now, uploads videos of her cat who used to be Daria Perekidalova. Well, she would always ridicule me for making mistakes in Russian and would refuse to help me and saying I was unteachable and not very good at it. And she's out there on YouTube as of now, living in Ireland with her husband Karsten Larson. She's living with him now. I could never get married to a woman. Getting married is too much work. It's just too much to do. To get married and live in a home. It's really just too much to work and get married. I could never get married because my personality does not mix with the kind of girls that are Jersey Shore whorish types that have no brain, lack willpower to think like a real person, and who don't have the intelligence to live beyond TV shows and stuff, who are obsessed with pop culture and things like that. The American. I know Rose Johnson's not obsessed with pop culture. Who knows? The society is so dumbed down that nothing matters to me anymore. Everything that used to matter is gone. I kind of laugh at Benny, the Irish polyglot, how he says to not make mistakes. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Believe me, when I knew Daria, I was afraid of making mistakes and getting ridiculed for them. By those goddamn Russians. Those Russians. It's terrible. She was the only one that ever said I was poor at Russian and needed help. I needed help. The language learning methods I was learning were not good enough. Not teaching me what I needed to know. I could have an instructor in that language, but that is difficult to have. Online tutors are really expensive. Online is really expensive. Okay. Online is really expensive, and having somebody tutor you in person is really expensive, and there aren't that many around here. Everybody speaks English around where I live in Cochranton, so there are few opportunities for me to learn a foreign language except to go to Erie and find Russian people. Most of them speak English. Talking to people up in Erie is a great idea, but most of them ignore me online. Most of them don't talk to me anymore. Most of them, like Maria Semeniakova, she used to talk to me on until I decided to help her with an issue that she had. She didn't like the fact that I read her status on Facebook, and she blocked me. That was the end of that. The Russians, they're friendly. They're cold people. Russians, some of them are really nice people. Among the best people I've ever known, and intelligent people. They're more intelligent than us. And they're polyglots like Katerina Pulikova, who speaks French, Spanish, and English. But I don't see very many foreign speakers. How does it people know so many? How is it that Benny and all the other polyglots know so many languages without ever feeling so overwhelmed? One of the first things I did when I studied Russian was study the grammar. I found the grammar complicated. And I thought that Russians could speak Russian better than I can. My opinion on Russians is they could speak better than I can. They always spoke perfect Russian and always knew the the correct way of speaking Russian. And they always ridiculed people that spoke badly. Never thought highly of them. Or whatever. That's the problem I've had for the last several years. Having problems with talking to Russian people. The internet is so stupid. I wish Daria Larson out there, who's out on YouTube, to burn in hell. Sure, it's not nice to say, but I wish she'd just go burn in hell. If she ever reads my comments or sees this video, yeah, I'll let her know for sure. I'll let her know for sure what I really think that woman should burn in hell. Anyway, it's nothing new. I wake up in the morning, I get dressed, I get a shower. Not that I wake up, I get a shower, I go to bed. Diana bitches at me while I record a video like this. She bitches at me to go to bed. Won't let me record my video because I did follow a schedule. And mom tells me I have to follow a schedule. I hate schedules. I hate schedules. I really hate them. I always lived a free-form life when I was at my parents' house. I never had a damn schedule to worry about. I created my World War I game out of free creativity. Out of the best creativity known to man. Out of Photoshop. Modifying Doug Friend's map to create a World War I game that people wanted. That he had already created a World War II game in 1939, a year earlier than the 1940 global game that Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, had designed. Doug Friend's game took place in 1939 and was more complex, more involved than the Axis and Allies games. The Axis and Allies games are really complicated. I've done well. I played as Italy, played as the Axis powers, and when I played the Axis powers, Italy took Persia, Iraq, Syria, Algeria, Kenya, Rhodesia, uh, took over a good portion of Africa. Germany took over Yugoslavia in its first turn. Germany took over Yugoslavia and beat the small Yugoslav army. The Italians beat the Greeks, took over Greece in one of their few turns. The Italians actually took over Greece, something they failed to do in the original war. The game does not have to be based on the original war. Now, of course, when the United States gets all mobilized and gets all starting to flex its muscle, starting to win, then the Axis powers are forced on the defensive and are forced to move their fleets to the waters off Japan and off Italy and off Germany to protect themselves from an invasion. The Russians are pretty much weak in that game. Russia has a weak economy. The only major industrial complex in all of Russia, in all of that game, that belongs to the Soviet Union is in Russia, the territory called Russia in the game. The Soviet Union has only one major industrial complex and has about half dozen or 4 or 5 minor industrial complexes and territories that can be placed on minor industrial complexes such as Western Ukraine, Ukraine SSR, Rostov, Caucasus, Volgograd, and Novgorod. Novgorod and Volgograd are the only territories that have minor industrial complexes, and you can place Germany, you can place a minor industrial complex in Poland, Holland, Belgium, Denmark, Norway, Finland, if you have Finland, Greater Southern Germany, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, possibly Greece and Yugoslavia if you have them. When you conquer a territory in the game, like France, Germany takes over France, the industrial complex is downgraded from a major to a minor, and you cannot upgrade the industrial complex in the territory as France, known as France, if you play Germany, because France is not an original German territory, and because France is not an original German territory, you cannot upgrade it. You're stuck with a minor industrial complex. And you can only build a minor industrial complex in Normandy, Bordeaux. France can only upgrade the minor industrial complex in southern France to a major, but then if a foreign power takes southern France, it has to be downgraded to a minor. I have no idea why in the hell 2nd edition was made that way. You cannot build industrial complexes on islands. You cannot build, because most of the islands on the game map have no value. New Zealand has a value of 2 IPCs, but it cannot have an industrial complex built on it. It has a cruiser offshore. Anzac cruiser offshore belongs to Anzac. It has an air base, a naval base on New Zealand. It belongs to Anzac. It belongs to Anzac. and therefore it has 3 fighters stationed there. 2 fighters. The Japanese could easily take New Zealand in global 1940, but New Zealand's on the other side of the map, taking the Dutch East Indies in the game for Japan is pretty hard. Taking the Dutch East Indies is pretty hard because it requires you to carefully position your transports off French Indochina and move into C-Zone 43, 44, 42, or 41. And French Indochina is only 3 C-Zones away from Japan. But you can declare war on the United Kingdom, easily take Guangdong in the first round of the game as Japan. Guangdong is small, poorly defended. British upgraded to a major industrial complex there. Really hurt the Japanese. Go to China and declare war on them. But Guangdong is small and surrounded. A naval base, the Japanese easily take it over within the turn. Guangdong easily falls. And then there's Malta with its fighter, its anti-aircraft gun, and infantry. In first edition, 1940, Malta was not even defended by anything. I thought that was stupid, considering Malta was strategic and incredibly vital to the British, that they would leave Malta undefended for the Italians to take it over. The Italian transport is off C-Zone 96. In C-Zone 96, it can do a bridging maneuver, which is the term they use in the game to describe such a move, where you put your units on transport, one tank, one infantry, or whatever, artillery, whatever combination you use, and move it onto Malta. However, that fighter with a defense of 4 just easily cuts you to pieces. That fighter on Malta will just cut you to pieces. The fighter on Malta just cuts you to pieces. I mean, it does. The strategic bomber. You could deploy your strategic bomber from northern Italy to support any attacks on Malta. But attacking Tobruk from Alexandria is difficult, if not impossible. It's not as difficult because your infantry attack at a 1. They have the lowest roll in the game. Because they have the lowest roll in the game, it's often difficult to get a 1 score hit when you pair it with an artillery. If you pair it with an artillery, you easily get hits with it. It's a deadly combination, infantry paired with an artillery. Very deadly. And you often win. But the infantry defense at 2 easily cuts you down. The mechanized infantry stationed in Alexandria. If you break through Alexandria, you have a nice chance of breaking through Egypt, which is defended by 1 Anzac, 2 Anzac infantry, and 1 British infantry. Instructions say to remove 2 British infantry and replace them with Anzac infantry. Anzac. The Australians were deployed to Egypt to help their British comrades and arms the British allies in the Commonwealth to protect Egypt from an Axis invasion. Alexandria is the buffer to Egypt. Tobruk is the buffer to Libya. However, you cannot move from Tobruk to French Equatorial Africa because of the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert makes that move impossible because of the impassable Sahara Desert. The United States, you pretty much cannot do anything. It's the United States, you cannot do anything because the United States is neutral. The United States in the game, the United States is a neutral power, and the Soviet Union is a neutral power. They start off as neutral, and the United States has to wait till turn 3 to declare war on the Axis, and the Soviet Union has to wait until after turn 4 to declare war on the European Axis power. But you can easily take your infantry from Saha and Buryatia and put them into maritime Amur, and put them into Amur, and then move these infantry combined together and attack Manchuria or Korea and easily overwhelm the Japanese with superior numbers. Of course, Mongolia does not intervene. However, if Japan attacks in a territory Soviet territory adjacent to a Mongolian one, all Mongolian territories become Soviet-controlled and the Soviet infantry are placed on them. If Japan attacks a Mongolian territory, all strict neutrals are then allied against the Axis. And if the Soviet Union attacks a Mongolian territory, all strict neutrals will be allied against the Allies. It will become pro-Axis. Like Sweden, for example, will become a pro-Allies nation, a pro-Axis nation if pro-Axis nation if Japan attacks, if Russia attacks Mongolia, if China attacks Mongolia, it will become, the neutrals become pro-Axis. All the games neutrals will become pro-Axis. All the games remaining strict neutrals will become pro-Axis. It's a rule in the game. That's how you play Europe Global 1940. But if you attack the United States, which is essentially a pro-Allies neutral, because of its neutrality and isolationism from global affairs and not wanting to get involved in the world's affairs, you just attacked another power. And the 3 minor industrial complexes on western United States, central United States, and eastern United States all become major industrial complexes. All 3 of them become major, and the United States economy goes into full gear. And the United States gets a 25 IPC bonus, which raises their IPC level to 77 IPCs from 52. Because the United States has to have one unit in France for it to become 30, which is an additional 5 IPCs. If the United States doesn't have control of the Philippines, that becomes 20. It becomes a 20 IPC bonus. The United States gets 72 points, IPC points. The United States, France is easily beaten in the game. The Germans have superior numbers on the French border, on their border, their territories adjacent to France. They easily overwhelmed the French and British, defending France, or Normandy, Bordeaux with its small numbers of infantry, or southern France. You can go through northern Italy, through western Germany, as Germany, and invade southern France. Southern France that way, and take the French. Southern France becomes essentially undefended. Southern France is not undefended as in infantry, I think. The Italians attack there and easily overwhelm the French. And the Italians take over southern France. If Germany doesn't take it in that turn, well, I don't know why. Axis and Allies, I made a map modification called Global 1942, where I made the game take place in 1942, and I updated territories in 1942. I made Iraq British, Persia British, to replicate an Ethiopian, Italian, Somaliland British, because those territories were all British, taken by the British by 1942. Greece and Yugoslavia are no longer pro-Axis, pro-Allies neutrals. Bulgaria is in the hands of Germany, and Finland is now Axis, controlled by Germany to represent Finland's alliance with Germany. My game is out. It's out. You can download and print it if you want. If you want to. Well, I've said enough about Global 1942. The possibilities of what you can do in that game are endless. You could send your strategic bomber 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces from northern Italy to attack United Kingdom, and then 2 spaces into Holland and Belgium to attack the United Kingdom in a strategic bombing raid from northern Italy if you're playing Italy. From Germany, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. To fly away from England to Germany, fly away from Germany to the United Kingdom, where your strategic bomber is based to bomb the British factory, major industrial complex in the United Kingdom. And of course, the fighters there intercept. They defend at a 1, you attack at a 1. You get through the fighter defense, and you get through the flak from the built-in facilities, air defense, then you should have no problem inflicting damage. I don't roll very high. If you roll like a 4, for example, you add 2 to that die, which makes it 6. And that factory gets 6 damage points under it. And then you can only mobilize 4 units in that game. Unless you pay for the repairs, the damage to the factory, which then you can get. Then you can get all your mobilization points. And you can put all 10 units in there. Major industrial complex is 10 units. Minor is 3. Minor industrial complex. Mobilize up to 3 units. Any kind. It's really difficult to play. It's really fun to play Axis and Allies. It's fun to play. If you know what you're doing. It's really, really fun. It's fun as hell to play. All hell to play. All you gotta do is mobilize your forces. Play your cards right as Japan. wait until the opportunity strikes, and then move your transports 1, 2, 3 to Palau Island, and then build a naval base on Palau Island, and then 1, 2, 3, and then you can attack Java with whatever units you got and overrun the Dutch East Indies. If you know what you're doing and you strategize correctly, you can be unbeatable in that game. You are just unbeatable. Germany is a little hard to beat down because of its money that it gets from its territories. It's a lot of money. It's hard to beat down with strategic bombing. It's hard to beat down Germany. Like it was in the real war. Germany is a tough opponent to fight. The Russians are steamrolled easily by the Germans. Germany can easily hold off an attack on the Eastern Front from Russia, from the Soviet Union. Germany can easily hold off an attack. If Poland falls to the Soviets, or Romania falls, or Slovakia, Hungary falls, well, that's 3 for each territory, which means that if Russia controls Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, and Poland, it gets 9 points. 9 bonus IPCs, because the rule states 3 IPCs for each Italian, German, or pro-axis neutral controls. This is the rule in the game. This is the rule in the game. Okay. For the Soviet Union. About spreading the spread of communism. The spread of communism, in which the Russians get to benefit money from taking German, Italian territories, but not Japanese territories, which the Russians benefit enormously from taking them. But Russia is Timguska, should be Tunguska. Why it's spelled Timguska is beyond me, and why there's a great misspelling of Imperious Leader, his maps, and how he thinks he's always right and my translations are false and stuff. He thinks that he is always right and I'm always wrong. He's just an arrogant little bastard. I had to deal with him on many occasions. I get criticized and insulted about my ideas relating to the Axis and the Allies games by the community, that Munoz guy, for example. It was really hard for me to be on these forums. Yeah. And some of the people, they're real jerks. But you gotta watch out for them. They claim they're experts in the game, and you're wrong about history and stuff if you don't agree with what they say. Because they claim to be always right. And whatever, and they think your history interpretation is wrong and stuff. And they know everything, supposedly. Which they don't, but they do. If Germany invades the Soviet Union, in turn, whatever, if Germany invades the Soviet Union, in turn, whatever, and takes the weak Soviet Union and pushes from eastern Poland all the way to spaces, Belarus, just stops at Moscow, stops at Smolensk, just short of Russia. It's the prize of Moscow. The Russians can mobilize their 10 IPC unit with their money in Russia and mobilize for a counterattack or whatever, and then take over. The Russians are all but screwed. Germans have to wait their turn for attack, and they're all but screwed. All but screwed. It's a really tough game to play. It's tough. It's a tough game. It takes hours, not days, to play Global 1940 with all the powers and all the new powers and all the China, Anzac, Italy. Yeah, it takes days to play that game. Probably months. It takes forever. It takes like 1,000,000 years to play. It's really difficult to play if you're not a master of strategy games, or if you don't know about World War II. If you're not that much of an expert on World War II, this game's not for you. Or if you don't know, if you can't have a hard time remembering things, or you have memory problems, the game's not for you. Or if you're colorblind, you have difference telling Japan apart from the United States, then that would be another problem. I play with someone who's colorblind named Jeremy. He has problems playing the game because of his colorblindness. It's difficult for him to play, but he's a good strategist. It's a good game to play Europe 1940. I've said enough about Europe 1940. I want to talk about foreign languages now. Yeah. As much as I like to talk about Europe 1940, I have to move on and talk about the rest of my game. My game at learning foreign languages. Foreign language is really difficult for me. Strani jezici su trudni za mene. Oni su trudni. All languages are difficult, but Finnish is the most difficult. Hungarian is the most difficult language to learn. And Finnish practice masters Finnish because it's his native language. Finnish practice easily gets it. I, on the other hand, do not. I, on the other hand, have difficulty getting Russian because it's difficult to translate. Not everybody can be a translator. You have to be certified in the field to be a translator. You can be a freelance translator, but they're usually not very good and very reliable sometimes. I like to be a freelance translator of the Russian language. That's what I consider my occupation to be, as a freelance translator. And this is a B-24 bomber model I'm holding in my hand right here. Anyway, I consider myself to be a freelance translator like my brother Matt considers himself to be a freelance composer or a musician. But translator, you can know several languages, not be a very good translator because you don't know the grammar, because you don't know the certain aspects to be a translator. It's a really difficult job to do, and not everybody can be good at it. Just the egotism. That lady who was talking to Benny, that French translator who translated his book fluent in 3 months. She's saying that only certified people can be translators is BS because there are plenty of freelance translators out there. Just the egotism of the professionals really gets to you. Ego. They don't want their ego being deflated by some freelance translator like myself who speaks several different languages and stuff. It deflates their ego. They have big egos sometimes. Benny the Irish polyglot sure knows everything. He sure knows how to translate foreign languages. He sure knows how to translate all languages. He focuses on the aspects of communication. Like whether what you don't know, which is a great strategy. But focusing on the structure and the grammar of a language and getting past that, the best I can do, I just read the grammar books in the library and the library and books and stuff. I just read the grammar books from the library and how to learn the grammar and how to conjugate verbs. And this is very important for me to learn the grammar and to learn how to speak properly. That if Penny says if you focus on the grammar, you won't be good enough. This isn't true. It's not true. If you learn the grammar, you'll be better at speaking a language and you won't make as many mistakes. Embarrassing mistakes, but it's okay to make mistakes, but not make embarrassing mistakes that show how bad you are. And yeah, sure, he prides himself on learning all these languages, right? Benny, the Irish polyglot. But he is too prideful, in my opinion. He has the money to travel everywhere across the world, and I do not have that kind of resources. I don't have the kind of money like he does to travel to anywhere in the world. I do not have thousands of dollars to do that. I don't have the money to go meet my italki contacts and speak languages with them in Moscow or something. That's just not an option for me. He has meetups where he talks to foreign people online. Most oftentimes they ignore me, don't talk to me. The Russian people in Erie are awful. They're closed-minded people. They're not very nice sometimes. Damn Russians. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for learning another language. I have time for learning another language. One of my main goals right now is to pass the extra class exam and become proficient in ham radio. Have all the bands, be able to broadcast all the bands without regard to whether or not it's reserved for extra only or general class or whatever. All the bands, I'll have it on all the bands. I will have all the band privileges. If Benny thinks that Germans are robots that speak der and das and der die and das and have super perfect grammar, then maybe Germans are all Nazis that want to kill all the Jews and take over Europe and commit another Holocaust. Maybe they want to do that. But as far as Benny and his facetious comments about that, but he'd never say that Germans were Nazis. Most people know that not all Germans were Nazis, and those that were pretty bad people, but history is behind us now. That was a long time ago, way back in the past. That doesn't matter now. Sure, it matters that the Holocaust happened and all that, but it also matters is that we don't let it happen again. That fascism doesn't come back, but it came back in the Ukraine recently when the Ukrainians took power and wanted to drove the Russians out of eastern Ukraine, and the Russians fought back, and they are still fighting right now. Who knows? When someone views this video, it'll probably have already ended by then. I've recorded a 45-minute video about the subject. I've recorded a pretty long video about Benny, about my life. I've recorded a pretty long video my life. I've recorded. Well, my point is, be afraid of making mistakes. Don't care what Benny says. He's a huckster. He's no liar. He's honest about what he believes, but he's just trying to sell a product so he can get people to be fluent in 3 months like him. We can't be fluent in 3 months. It's impossible. You can learn to speak in maybe a few months and become proficient a little bit, but it takes years of practice to become fluent. Fluent in 3 months is impossible. He's full of himself. Yeah. Always learn the grammar. First rule of learning a language is learn the grammar. If you have trouble with the grammar, skip it. Skip it. Look in your dictionary and learn all the phrases. I don't know how he learns all the phrases of speaking a language without talking to people. I have nobody to talk to who speaks French. Very few people around here speak Spanish. I have no opportunities to speak foreign languages where I live in Cochranton. I have very little opportunity to do that. Foreign language speakers around here are few and far between. Everybody speaks English, so it's kind of useless for me. It's not useless to know a foreign language, but it's useful to understand the language and be able to speak it. Very useful for furthering your own knowledge. But it's also useful knowledge to further yourself by becoming an amateur radio operator. Amateur radio operator. Like me, I'm W3AGF, Justin Williak. Same as my grandfather Cecil Messenger. W3AGF, vanity call sign. That's who I am. I bet Benny could never become Ham. I always thought a ham was somebody who memorized a big test of 35 questions on the general and the technician. 35 questions. And you have to get 26 correct out of 35 on those two tests to be able to pass. I passed my general and my technician. So I have to pass my extra and then I'll be able to be fully proficient in all the bands. I hope to do that someday. Well, that's all I have to say for right now. Well, I wish to say more about Benny. His approach to learning a language, I think, is flawed. Do like Pimsleur and foreign language software and coaching you on how your pronunciation through language learning software out there that you can buy at Walmart. Language learning software that you can buy. Out there that something that isn't Rosetta Stone, that one program that you can buy coaches you on pronunciation and stuff, how to speak like a native speaker in your accent. Yeah, that software. It's not Rosetta Stone, but it's a small budget form of it. That was pretty good software. I learned a lot from that. It helped me learn a foreign language. I was a lot more absorbed into foreign languages when I was 15 than I am now. Foreign language is difficult. I often forgot it because I always remembered it because I could always refer back to it whenever I could speak something in my head, and whenever I had fully memorized, and whenever I could remember something that I couldn't use every day. And I remember stuff that I don't usually use every day because I've got a great memory. It helps to have a great memory. If you don't have a great memory when learning another language, you're kind of lost. So, there. That's all I have to say right now. Au revoir, tschüss, do widzenia, laku noc, gute Nacht, bonne nuit. I fala so Chenya video Toya Justin. Remember to study for your general. Remember to first study for your technician, then your general, then your extra. And then it falls into place. You know everything about ham radio. Sure, the questions are hard and the tests are hard, but if you try often enough, you will pass. If you try, you will pass. If you try again, you miss one. If you miss it by 1 or 2 or 3, you take your technician, try again. Try again until you pass. Try again until you pass your general, your technician, or your extra, or whatever, and you'll be fine. You'll be a certified ham. You'll be on the air, broadcasting on 2 meters, 440, 40 meters, 80 meters, 160 meters, whatever band you prefer. Just don't swear and don't be a jerk on the air. That's all. Goodbye.